What is going on, everybody? It is Preston here from the Legendarium. I hope you're having a good one wherever you are. Welcome to episode number 11 of 30-Minute Author Interviews. This week, our guest is active duty Army soldier Brian Parker. He is self-published and traditionally published, and he has written in several genres. He's even written a children's picture book. So guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 30 minutes with Brian Parker. Hey guys, welcome everybody to this episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews. Our guest today is Brian Parker. Thanks for joining us today, Brian.
Thanks a lot for having me, Preston.
I appreciate it. For those that don't know anything about you and what you do, why don't you just give them a kind of bio of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm an active duty Army officer. Been in for 21 years now. In September, it'll be 21 years. Started out as an enlisted medic and then a field artillery officer. And for people that don't know, field artillery is the big gun, to shoot the 95-pound plus projectiles downrange. Been doing that for a while, and then I started writing to actually publish about 5 years ago. And then I wrote my first book, Nash, finished my first book, Nash, in 2013. And since then, I've kind of, been balls to the wall. I've written 13 books since then.
Wow.
And several short stories.
Wow, sounds good. How do you find time with your busy life to write?
So I'm very fortunate. I don't need a lot of sleep. I usually need about 5 to 6 hours. And I'm perfect, and I can go on 2 hours no problem for a few days. But so what I do is I usually just write after my family goes to bed. They have like a 9 o'clock bedtime ish. So once they go to sleep, I'll sit down and write, and then. That's pretty much when I get my writing done. And on the weekends, I wake up, I still wake up like the normal work time, which is 5 o'clock for me. So I'll wake up and start writing, and they don't wake up till 8 o'clock or so. So I get 3 hours on the weekend, each morning on the weekend. So I fit it in. A big thing that I don't do is I don't watch TV. I have 2 television shows that I watch, and I just DVR those, and then I fast forward to the commercials. So I save a ton of time, by just not watching TV.
Yeah, that's true. That'll save you a lot of time. Well, I guess I should go back and say thank you for your service. We all appreciate what you do for us here in the country, so thank you for your service. Okay. So you have self-published some books, but you also have some books that have gone through traditional publishers. What do you see as the disadvantages and the advantages of each one, and then is there any advantages and disadvantages to doing both?
So, obviously, I'm a hybrid, so traditionally and self-published, and I think that's about as good as you can get, in my opinion. So the pros for a self-published author, and I'm kind of speaking off the cuff here because I also have a how-to guide for self-publishing called Self-Publishing the Hard Way, it was basically taking all my mistakes and kind of laying out this is how I fixed it. But so the pros to self-publishing, I think, number one, the biggest thing is total absolute control. You are the one who decides what your editor says yay or nay to. You're the one who picks the cover art, designs everything. You decide if you want to have it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, iBooks, all that stuff, or if you just want to go Amazon exclusive, which a lot of self-publishers do because of the much higher royalty rate. Again, the total 100% control is the huge advantage to self-publishing. On the flip side of that, though, the biggest advantage in my mind, and which is why I sought out a traditional publishing contract, was the ability to reach new listeners. Because most indies kind of plateau at a certain amount of people that they're able to interact with and reach on a daily basis. And having a traditional publisher, in your corner, that has an already pre-established huge following potentially, that can help you reach new readers. That's the biggest advantage in my mind. A lot of folks I talk to are like, you get a traditional publisher and don't worry, they're gonna do all your marketing, all your promoting, all that stuff, and that's simply not the case. You're still responsible for tooting your own horn, and you're the one that's out there. But just having your name and your book on a publisher's website, that's the huge advantage. I mean, that's what you're giving up the royalties for, is that potential reader market.
Which genres are your books in? Because you're kind of all over the place, aren't you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think you hit it on the head. I'm all over the place. I've got zombie apocalypse. I have straight traditional apocalypse. I've got a military fiction. I've got a paranormal. I just recently published a sci-fi noir detective novel. And I've also got a kid's book, of all things. So I'm like literally all over the place.
That's funny. So why have you not written just in one genre like a lot of authors will do?
Well, I think I don't only read one genre, so why would I pigeonhole myself into only writing that genre? And two of the zombie and the post-apocalyptic stuff is much more popular, in my opinion, that I've found at least, than some of my other stuff. But I write for me, and if people enjoy it, awesome, and they want to pick it up, great, and they want to pay me, even better. But I don't want to just like be pigeonholed for myself into that one certain genre, because I like to read everything, you know? The only thing I'm not writing right now is nonfiction, and that's one of the things I really like to read is like historical nonfiction, but I'm not writing that. So which genre of yours that you write seems to be the most popular? It goes back and forth. Right now, this month, I would say, is probably the post-apocalyptic stuff.
Okay.
It kind of goes, in my experience, the winter months are more zombie, at least for my series, and then in the summertime, spring, the post-apocalyptic stuff. And that could just be, you know, people, you know, are reading more, you know, over the wintertime, you know, or it corresponds with The Walking Dead or something. I don't know. But my zombie stuff sells a whole lot better in the winter, and my post-apocalyptic is a whole lot better in the summer.
I was about to ask you if you thought The Walking Dead had any influence on that.
And again, it might. I don't know.
Yeah. So is there any genre that you would love to write in that you haven't done yet?
I would love to write in steampunk. I just don't. My knowledge of mechanical workings of like Victorian era is just not good enough to be believable. And that's something that I really, really try to do, is I try to bring realism to everything I do. And so I think I might be faking the funk a little bit too much, you know, if I tried to write steampunk. I love reading it. I just don't know that I could do it.
So how did you get into writing? Have you written your whole life?
Yeah, man. I wrote as a kid, like nonstop. I grew up on a farm in the middle of freaking nowhere. And so like writing and reading were like some of the things that we did, you know, outside of chores. And so I wrote all through high school, all through college. And then once I joined the Army, you know, I got myself in that standard mental mind trap that a lot of adults seem to do, is, oh, I have a career, I don't have time to write. So I really stopped writing. I didn't ever stop reading, but I stopped writing, stopped putting words to paper, you know, for 15 years. And I feel it's a detriment to me, number one. But as I was writing, I was stationed in D.C., in Washington, D.C., and I was writing the Metro, and I read a book by J.L. Bourne called Day by Day Armageddon. And I was really liked the book and was reading about the author section, and come to find out he's an active duty Navy officer. And so I was like, you know, if this guy has time to do it, I can do it. So that's where I kind of just like dusted off some of the ideas that have been kicking around my head for, you know, 15, 20 years, you know, and started putting them to paper. And a little bit of it was self-serving as well, because there were several books that I'd gotten through Amazon that had been self-published, and I was like, I can write way better than these guys, you know. So wanted to see that I could do it, because I think everybody always says they can write a book until they actually try, and then that's where it's separated a little bit.
Was there a certain book or book series growing up that had a major impact on you, kind of always being interested in writing?
Probably the series, and specifically a book that got me to fall in love with storytelling, not necessarily writing, is the Shannara series, or Shannara, by Terry Brooks. And the book specifically that I've read probably 6 or 7 times is The Wish Song of Shannara. And that's the one that they just made into the MTV series and all that stuff. And it was okay, but it was nothing like the book, but who cares? It was still a good TV show. But so that the way that Terry Brooks weaves a story, probably that's really what I enjoy the most. And I actually inadvertently kind of follow it, because he never follows one character and just with that character all the time. You know, he kind of follows one group of people and goes with another group of people and has like 4 or 5 stories that are all going at the same time that culminate together. And that's kind of what I usually, for the most part, except for the books I have that are written in first person, that's what I usually try to do.
So since you write in so many different genres, if somebody was to go and look at your computer history for when you've been writing books, when you're doing your research, what's some of the strangest things they might find you've had to research for some of your books?
Oh, gosh. I mean, especially writing in post-apocalyptic and zombies, I know I'm on an NFA watch list, so that's for dang sure. They search nuclear fallout levels and warhead yields and what type of viruses or bacteria transmit the fastest and transmission rates for X, Y, and Z, and just literally all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've always got Google open whenever I'm writing, and constantly like typing in things, and it's not good. Like how much blood is in a human body, and if I stab a person this way, will they bleed? Just lots of stuff. So.
That's funny. Have you ever written any of your characters into a situation that maybe you didn't necessarily plan and you've had to stop to try to figure out, okay, what do I do next?
All the time. I don't outline, so I have in my mind, I have a general idea of what I want the story to do, and then I have a ultimate resolution. Sometimes I don't even have that. But I kind of have a destination where I want them to end up, and so I write by the seat of my pants, and so I like being surprised by where the story goes as well. I think that's how a lot of times I get the plot twists that I do because I didn't plan them. so it's just like, well, let's have this guy get captured and tortured. So there are lots of times where I have to kind of take a step back and think, all right, do I want to keep this or do I want to discard it? And I'm certainly not afraid to throw things away if it doesn't make any sense to the storyline. In my first book, Nash, I threw away about 30 pages, one entire segment. Because I had the guy captured by the main character. I had him captured by a militia and tortured in an underground chamber. And I'm like, wait a minute. After I got 30 pages into it, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Just threw it all away.
That's funny. So is there any scene when you're writing that's harder for you to write than others?
Probably sex scenes. I don't write them. Typically, I'll do off-camera sex. I don't like to actually write sex scenes. So that's probably the hardest, I would think. A thing that I've been criticized for by people is how quick and violent my action sequences are. I've been doing the Army thing for 20 years. Like I said, that's because that's how violence happens. It happens quick. It's dirty, and it's usually over. Very, very, very fast. And people are used to how Hollywood will stretch out an action sequence for 25 minutes. They don't understand that that's not how it happens in real life. In combat, a firefight that lasts more than 2 hours is very rare. I mean, they happen, but it's extremely rare. So if it's like a one-on-one type situation, especially like a person with a knife or something, it's going to be quick and violent, and people don't understand that. So I've actually had several people that are like, no, man, they should have went on for pages and pages and pages. And it's like, that's not what's going on, man.
Right.
Just stab and go. So.
Have you been able to use your Army experience a lot when writing your stories? Has it helped you when writing?
Definitely. I do have a military fiction available, like I said, and that was based all on personal experiences and close friends' experiences. Literally everything in the book is stuff that I know has happened in real life. And so that's why a lot of people are like, wow, this is crazy. And it's like, well, that's kind of what happens to people all the time, actually. But yeah, my military experience has been extremely beneficial in all sorts of, all aspects of writing. From the keep it simple, stupid, principle, the KISS principle, to, land navigation, getting from one point to another, to the fighting sequences and what real actually would look like in a fight or in a survival situation.
Is there one subject that, as an author, you will just never write about?
The death of children.
Oh, really? Why's that?
I think one, it's overdone. A lot of people use it for the shock value, and it usually does not bring anything to the story. They kill off a kid and they're like, oh, look at this, I'm a shocking author, and now you're going to enjoy the story. But two, I have kids, and I don't want to read about death. I've seen dead kids in real life. I don't want to see that or read about it, because we all know that in most of the stuff that I write about, most of the genres that I write in, kids would not do well, and they would have a higher mortality rate than adults probably. But I don't want to highlight that, and I don't want to bring that to the forefront. I mean, that's not. If I can't write a good story that does not do that, I mean, and certainly there are some books that's a requirement. They have to do it for character development or something. But if I can't write a good story without that, then probably shouldn't be writing it.
So your latest book is called The Immortality Calls. Why don't you kind of give everybody the little book blurb about what that's about?
So it's actually the Immortality Clause.
Sorry, I read it wrong.
I write it down wrong all the time. so basically, it's set in Easy Town, which is a futuristic slum in New Orleans. So it's about 100 years in the future. There's Russia, China, India, Pakistan kind of all have a big war over in the Asian continent. And so as a result, there's global cooling, on a smaller scale than what some models predict. So the polarized caps have kind of made bigger icebergs and everything, and so some of the coasts have receded, like in America, and so down in New Orleans, this whole land was reclaimed from the sea down Lake Burgoyne, I think. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's Cajun. So there's an area down there that's currently underwater. It's a lake. It's reclaimed from the sea, and so the slum was built on the area, and it's called Easy Town. And so the story follows a detective who is a homicide detective, and his for this story, it's going to be a series, but for this story, there's a series of unexplained murders in the robotic sex clubs. And so he's going through trying to figure out, because at the start of the book, there's 0 clues that are being left. I think there's 4 murders whenever we come into the book. And so far there's been 0 clues as far as who's done it, what's happening, what's the motive, all that. And so we kind of go from there. And I wrote the book, it's got kind of a cyberpunk feel to it, but I didn't go crazy into new technology and all that stuff. Basically, it's our current tech just kind of enhanced a little bit and more. Obviously, in 100 years, you have no idea what's going to happen, but in 1985, we thought we were going to have flying cars and all that stuff. So I mean, the tech is not advancing as fast as we used to think it would, and certainly not as fast as it did at the turn of the 20th century. So the tech is recognizable to people who use an iPhone or anything like that. If they understand our current world, the tech is recognizable. And so kind of this character's trait is he breaks everything because he's just a knucklehead, and he's a hard-nosed detective, but he's absolutely clueless when it comes to women. And that's blatantly obvious the first interaction that he has with a girl who likes him. The typical reader is like, this guy's an idiot. And that's what I wanted to do with the character, is I wanted it to be like he's so focused on being a homicide detective and being the best there is and doing his job day in and day out. Because that's how the slum of Easy Town is. There's murders there all the time. He's so focused on that he really, the aspect of women in his life is just foreign to him.
So where did you get your idea for this story?
I think it's modeled a little bit after Blade Runner. Actually, I had a reviewer that said it was Blade Runner meets Ex Machina. And that's kind of the tagline that I've thrown out there because a reviewer said, and I was like, that's awesome. So it's modeled after that a little bit. But the sci-fi noir piece of it, so kind of like the old school detective, with the fedora and the trench coat and all that stuff. I read something, and there was a new movie that came out, and it was like, they were talking about, sci-fi noir detective novel, and I was like, oh, that'd be an awesome, not novel, excuse me, sci-fi noir detective story. And I watched the movie, and you'll have to forgive me, I can't remember the name of the movie, and I thought the movie sucked, but the idea of a sci-fi noir detective, I was like, that's awesome. That's kind of where I went from.
The movie sucked. Let me show you how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, well, no, they're totally 100% unrelated, because I think it was like time, if I remember right, I was drinking. If I remember right, it was like time travel or something like that as well.
Right.
It was bad.
So do you have a set number of books in that series you see being written, or do you think this is going to be a series where you might just write one every now and then and just keep the character going?
So I've got 2 more ideas lined out. And again, like I said, I'm a very big pantser, so I've got very, very broad ideas. And I started writing the second book while I was at the lake this past week, which I shouldn't have done because I still owe an anthology submission, but that's another story. I kind of tend to do that all the time too. I have multiple projects going at once, juggling stuff all the time. But so I started writing the second book, this past week, and I've got another idea for the third book, and then I don't know after that.
So if you could cast this detective in a Hollywood movie, who do you think you would get to play this detective?
Oh gosh, Carl Urban, I think would be a good one.
Okay.
Of course, he's also the guy who I would pick to do the main character in my Washington Dead City series. So
he'll just have to be in all your movies.
Using a name that I know.
What is your least favorite part of the whole publishing or writing process?
The time period between finishing the book, the rough draft, and submitting it to the editor. Because you go in and you do all the self edits, and you make that rough draft into a first manuscript, or to a working manuscript. And I hate self editing. I loathe it. Because at that point it feels like work. Because you're no longer telling the story, you're no longer just making it exciting. Now you're just going in and cleaning up, where you said "and" instead of "the," and cleaning up a couple little plot holes that I've taken notes on as I went along. That's the part that I hate the most. And then probably after that would be marketing and promoting, because that's getting people to want to read an indie author's book is very hard typically.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that it's so hard, because I got into the indie community just a couple of years ago. I haven't been in the indie community that long. It's probably been 2 or 3 years, and there's so many good authors out there that they just need that one shot that, skip your coffee one day and go buy a 99-cent book.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of good stuff out there.
And it's a shame. I mean, you in the author community, you always hear about, we need gatekeepers. And I'm a big believer of that, because there's 1 million books published a year, mm-hmm. and a lot of them don't need to be published.
Yeah.
So I mean, I go back and forth on it. As an indie, I'm like, yeah, support indie authors, yes, because I do support as many as I can. But at the same time, it's like if you can't string sentences together, hire an editor. Number one, don't self-edit,
right.
Which you see in the indie site in the indie market all the time. You see people that self-edit, and the cover art is typically, well, not typically, but a lot of times the cover art's really bad too. So those two things, I think indies need to police ourselves, and try to make the community a little bit stronger.
Yeah, that's when I was researching doing a podcast, one of the things they said is the one area you can't really skimp on is buying a microphone. Make sure you get a good microphone. And I feel like my opinion with indie authors is there's 2 areas that you don't need to skimp on, and it's the cover art and the editor.
Yep.
Because they always say don't judge the book by a cover, but we all do. And so you need to have a great cover, but then you also need to have great editing too, because if someone buys a book with a great cover and then the editing is just awful, then it's just so that's 2 things you have to invest in.
Yeah. And I mean, there's plenty of options out there. I was lucky. I lucked into my editor. She was an English major in college, many years ago, and she was just a reader. Whenever I self-published my first book, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and so I was one of those people. Whenever I first published my first book, that needed an editor, and I had self-edited it, and I had friends look at it. They weren't actual editors, and so she offered, hey, let me look at this, and then over time we developed a working relationship, and she actually has an editing service now that she does. It's just one of those things. Again, hindsight being 2020, I know you don't self-edit, but I was I can't pay thousands of dollars, which sometimes editors are that expensive. So I mean, it was a learning experience, but I think she has definitely cleaned it up, and that book I submitted to Permuted Press and was able to get a publishing contract after she edited it.
Was that the first book you ever submitted to a publisher, or had you submitted before?
No, yeah. So I submitted Nash. That's the only publisher I've ever submitted to was Permuted Press. I just on a whim because I'd already self-published it, paid for editing, and a friend of mine on Facebook was like, hey, they're open to right now. They're currently open to previously self-published works. So I submitted Nash to them, and they wanted it. They wanted to turn it into a series, and they also wanted first dibs at anything else I already had published. And I'd had another book, Enduring Armageddon, that had came out in February of 2014, and I signed the contract with them in May, and they're like, hey, we want Enduring Armageddon too. So I've got the four book deal through Permuted, and that's the only people I've ever submitted to. I go back and forth all the time, about whether I should try to find an agent, to potentially, seek more traditional publishing. And I was for the Immortality Clause. I was 100% dead set. I was going to submit it to, some of the bigger publishers, and try to go that route. And then about a week out, I was like, I can do this myself.
Right.
So I self-published it too. I don't know.
So we're going to jump into our last section of the podcast that I like to call the legendary ending. So these are just little rapid fire questions. You can just say the first thing that pops in your mind. Nothing too serious here.
That's always a bad idea.
What songs are currently on your writing playlist?
Rooster by Alice in Chains. And again, it really depends on what type of story I'm writing, but Dropkick Murphys are always playing, Flogging Molly, that sort of thing. I'll put that into Pandora if I'm listening to music when I'm writing and play those.
If you were stuck in a zombie apocalypse with one of the characters that you've created, which one would you want to be stuck with and why?
Kestrel, 100%, no doubt. Because he's a badass. He was a bit character in Nash, and then he was the main character in book 2 and main character in book 3. Total badass. He was a SEAL, and then he went to the CIA's Special Activities Group, Special Activities Division, excuse me. So he was totally in that special operators realm. Can pretty much do it all. Is 100% confident. Has no questions, about who he is, what he's going to do, and has an idea of exactly how to fix a problem. So.
Gotcha. Now, if you were stuck in a zombie apocalypse with any character from any media source, whether it's comics, books, movies, whatever, who would you want and why?
Superman. He would just fly me out of there. Come on.
There we go. Simple answer right there. If you had a time machine, where would you travel and why?
Oh, that's a good one. Probably. Well, I want to say, probably medieval Europe. Other than the whole Black Death and getting killed because you're an outsider thing. I mean, that'd be a pretty cool period to visit. Right.
If you wrote under a pen name, what genre would you write and why?
Porn.
Porn.
And I go back and forth all the time about whether I should just write in erotica or something, because the highest grossing genre out there is erotica. I think hold on, I've actually, if you give me 2 seconds, I'll look at my phone. I've got a picture that I've saved. It's insane the different figures on where we are with the genres and how much they make and how much they earn. So romance/erotica makes every year $1.44 billion. The next closest one is crime mystery, which is $728 million, and then religious is $720 million, and then science fiction fantasy, which is where I write, is $590 million. So again, 3 times as much is in romance and erotica. So number one, if I wasn't kind of skeeved out about writing sex scenes, and 2, I just wanted to kind of just make some money real quick.
Make some money.
That's where
that's crazy, because it seems like some of the most popular movies and stuff are science fiction, so I'm surprised that it's so low.
Yeah, and I mean, well, I have my own thoughts about why, but I mean, books like 50 Shades of Grey, that was multi-millions of dollars, hundreds of millions. So I'm sure that maybe skewed it a little bit. But I mean, they're definitely out there. That's double the very next category, which was the crime fiction. So.
That is crazy. If you had to pick one genre to read for the rest of your life, which one would you read and why?
Gosh. If I had to read only one, it would probably be science fiction, because you can have so many different variations off of science fiction. Within the science fiction realm, or are we talking like subcategories of the genre? Because, I mean, there's steampunk, there's cyberpunk, there's space travel, there's space opera, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But so sci-fi, and then probably, oh goodness gracious, probably colonization type sci-fi.
A penguin walks through the door right now wearing a sombrero. What does he say and why is he here?
I'm here for the revolution. And then he's probably going to take people down to the Mexican border to help lead the population to an uprising down there.
Sounds good. Before we leave, do you have any advice, whether it be for writing or for life, that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think my biggest piece of advice for writing, which can also translate over to life, is just write. Just do it. Just physically sit down and put words to paper. Don't worry about turning the perfect sentence or making the perfect phrase or making the scene perfect. You can do that whenever you edit it. Just get words on the paper and then work with what you've got once it's there.
So where can listeners go if they want to find out more about you and your books?
So the easiest place, which has links to my stuff all over it, would be my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Brian Parker Author. It's Brian with an I. So I think that would be the easiest place. And I mean, I'm on Amazon. I've got the Amazon Authors webpage, so people can find me there. But I interact with fans, on a daily basis on Facebook. And I don't only talk about my writing. I don't only talk about what I've got. I try to share funny pictures and stories, as well as things about the writing industry as a whole. And I since I also have a kids page or a kids book, I keep my page at PG-13 level. So if parents don't have to worry about going there and seeing scantily clad women. Well, sometimes scantily clad women if I'm doing a promotion for the Immortality Calls. But or blood and gore and all that stuff you don't got to worry about. But even though I write in the zombie genre, I don't go over the top with the gore and all that stuff that you see in a lot of other pages.
Well, thank you for coming on and joining us for this episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, guys, that's all the time we've got for this episode. Thank you for stopping by this week. I hope you come back next week when we'll have a brand new author interview for you. Head on over to legendarium.com. That's leghggendarium.com. And sign up for the newsletter that we have there. It's something we send out on the 1st and 15th of each month. Newsletter subscribers get my interview schedule for the next month. They get exclusive news before anybody else. And I have an exclusive monthly giveaway. Until next episode, stay legendary. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving definitely isn't for you.